Today we are going to be talking about the Pythagorean theorem. The Pythagorean theorem is usually taught in the 8th grade, and you can see here the Common Core standards. And in this PowerPoint we will only be discussing the Common Core standard 8GB7. This says, apply the Pythagorean theorem to determine unknown side lengths and right triangles in real-world and mathematical problems in 2 and 3 dimensions. The Pythagorean theorem was discovered over 2,000 years ago by Pythagoras, and it was named after him. And it is when a triangle has a 90-degree angle and you draw squares on the 3 sides of the triangle. The biggest square has the same area as the other 2 squares combined. This is written as a squared plus b squared equals c squared, with c being the longest side of the triangle and a and b being the legs of the triangle. Now the hypotenuse is what we call c. It is always the longest side of the triangle. Its definition is, in a right-angled triangle, the square of the hypotenuse is equal to the sum of the squares of the other 2 sides. So here you can see that our leg 1 is A, our leg 2 is B, and our hypotenuse is C. And when you square A and B and add them together, you get C squared. Now if you take the square root of C squared, or the area, it is the length of the hypotenuse, because your square root and your square cancel out. Now our first example is finding the hypotenuse. What is the length of the hypotenuse in inches when A equals 4 inches and B equals 3 inches? So our first step is to figure out what our leg lengths are. So our first leg is 4 inches. You need to square that. So 4 squared is equal to 16. Now B is our second leg, and it is equal to 3 inches. So 3 squared is equal to 9. Now we need to add those together. 16 plus 9 is 25. Our next step is to take the square root of 25. That is equal to 5. Therefore, the hypotenuse's length is 5 inches, as shown in the picture. The second example is using the hypotenuse to find another side. Find the length of B when A is equal to 9 inches and C is equal to 15 inches. So our first step is to plug our numbers into our equation. So A is 9, and we have our hypotenuse, which is C. So a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Plug in our 9 for A and plug in our 15 for C. So we have 9 squared plus b squared equals 15 squared. This gives us 81 plus b squared equals 225. Next, we want to get b by itself. So we have to subtract 81 from both sides. So b squared equals 225 minus 81. That is equal to 144. In order to get b by itself, though, we need to take the square root of both sides. So the square root of b squared is equal to the square root of 144. Our square root and our square cancel out and gives us b. Square root of 144 is equal to 12. b is equal to 12, which is our second leg. Our third example is how to tell if a triangle is a right triangle. Does a squared plus b squared equal c squared in the triangle shown? In other words, does the triangle have a right angle? So first, we have to figure out if 10 squared plus 24 squared is equal to 26 squared. 10 squared is equal to 100, 24 squared is equal to 576, and 26 squared is 676. So when we add 100 and 576 together, do we get 676? Yes, 676 is equal to 676. Therefore, it is a right triangle and has a right angle. Our fourth example is how to tell if a triangle is a right triangle, and it's a different way. This example shows you how to tell if it's a right triangle when using square root sides. So we're determining whether the following triangle has a right angle. So our first step is to figure out if the square root of 5 squared plus the square root of 3 squared is equal to the square root of 8 squared. Now our square roots and our square cancel each other out, so we are left with 5 plus 3 is equal to 8. And yes, 5 plus 3 is equal to 8. Therefore, our triangle is a right triangle and has a right angle. All of this information is found at Math is Fun, and there is the hyperlink of the website I used.